What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at 10 top teams for the Fossil Cup. This cup was actually around earlier this season, so we have kind of a look at what the meta already was and what worked and what didn't. So today we're going to be looking at some of the top teams that did work and some that have potential for this time around. That said, there was a newly buffed Pokemon added to the mix in Aegislash, but it is absolutely nowhere to be seen in this meta, so do not worry about it at all. Of course, you have only Water, Rock, and Steel type Pokemon that are eligible for this cup, and these are the top 20 rankings. We've got Gastrodon, Ferrothorn, Jellicent, Togedemaru, Registeel, Shadow Scizor, Poliwrath, Forretress, Tauros, Aqua Breed, Lantern, Whiscash, Steelix, Lucario, Berserker, Golisopod, Credilli, and yeah, that's the top 20 right there. So without further ado, let's take a look at some top teams. After a special thank you to the expert trainer members on this channel, Benny Hemlock, Dr. E Mustache, and Soham Patil, as well as the legend trainer members on this channel, Big Burden, Andrew Pitten, Moosechu, Noodleman, Speedster, and Jonathan. So the first team is a team that I had a lot of success with, and I ran on day one of the cup. I believe I went 12-0 with this team. It was incredibly strong. It was Togedemaru, Aqua Breed, Paldean Tauros, and Poliwrath. Now this team is just so strong, because Togedemaru beats literally everything except for grounds, fighters, and fires. So basically, you just have to have two answers to that in the back. And conveniently, everything it loses to is also weak to fighting, except for the Mud Boys, which is, you know, a neutral matchup for the Pokemon in the back anyways. I will say, if you don't have an Aqua Breed Paldean Tauros, as I know many don't, the only other water fighter is Quaquaval, which did just get buffed with Hydro Cannon, but still isn't really great for this meta. It definitely doesn't have that grass coverage and Trailblaze like Aqua Breed Paldean Tauros does, so it kind of struggles there. So you could just run this team in reverse instead, with like a Poliwrath lead, Steelix as a safe swap, and then Togedemaru in the back, which actually kind of leads me to my next team, and that is Poliwrath, Steelix, but instead of Togedemaru, we have Ludicolo. So Ludicolo basically does what Togedemaru does. It is an answer to your water type Pokemon as a Razor Leafer. However, this team does struggle against the water flyers and water bugs to an extent, so that's something to keep in mind. But if you don't see those on the lead, it's not a terrible thing. And also, Golisopod is walled right back at you, and so is Araquanid in the Poliwrath matchup, so it's not the end of the world. Razor Leaf is still neutral, so they're really not that bad matchups. Water Flyers, though, those can be tough. The next team we're going to take a look at is Gastrodon Double Bug Steel. This is once again an ABB style team. We've got Gastrodon in the lead, which has a double weakness to grass, and we have two Pokemon in the back that double resist grass. So very straightforward team. Both of the Pokemon in the back only have one weakness as well, and that weakness is a double weakness to fire, whereas Gastrodon resists fire and it has Mud Slap for super effective damage. So you can kind of see how this team really works. Having two Pokemon types that only have one weakness on one single team is actually really strong. So definitely something to consider for this cup. The next team we're going to take a look at is another ABB style team that I ran in the previous version of this cup with Alolan Sandslash and Double Water. I believe I ran Mantine and Jellicent instead of Golisopod, but Golisopod is just highly ranked or higher ranked. You could even opt for Aerial Ace on Golisopod as opposed to X-Scissor, so that you're not walled against Poliwrath, against Jellicent, and that you have that neutral coverage into the water type still. That said, I would also recommend Aerial Ace on Sandslash instead of Ice Punch, because it still gives you the coverage into the grass that you need. In fact, it just improves all of the matchups where you would be otherwise walled. If you think about Golisopod switching into your Sandslash, what do? You have no coverage for it, right? With Ice Punch and Drill Run both being resisted. However, if you have Aerial Ace, suddenly you have a super effective coverage move. A lot of people don't expect this coverage move from Sandslash, so it's definitely something to consider for this team. It has, I believe, for this team, or for Sandslash against the meta, it actually has a negative record with the Ice Punch Drill Run moveset. going 12, 15, and 1 in the one shield scenario, but Aerial Ace Sandslash goes positive with a 14, 13, and 1 record. And if you have a high rank Alolan Sandslash, your record suddenly jumps to 16 and 12 with Aerial Ace. So this thing definitely wants to run Aerial Ace in this meta. You could also run Pelipper or Mantine in the back instead of Golisopod or Jellicent, and this team would still work just fine, but Golisopod and Jellicent are the more meta options. The next team we're going to take a look at, I think you kind of get a picture of what this meta already is. It's another ABB style team where you have two steel types in the back that are weak to fire and fighting. Steelix is going to be your safe swap to lure out that weakness. If you think about what are the fighters in this meta, it's mostly Poliwrath, so baiting that out with both Thunderfang and Psychic Fangs is really not that bad of a matchup, and something that you can potentially flip. And then Jellicent can also punish if they commit 2 shields to win that matchup. And then you have Ferrothorn, which can sweep. Very similar to the Poliwrath Steelix line, so I don't really need to dive too deep into how the team is played. But same goes for Ferrothorn. Like it doesn't really have too many bad matchups besides like any fires or steals. So just lure that out with Steelix. You could even run Earthquake plus Psychic Fangs on Steelix, which is what I ran in the last rotation when I did run this Pokemon, and that allows you that gives you some steel coverage, which is really, really nice and kind of unexpected. It is a really expensive mood, but sometimes it's worth it. The next team we're going to take a look at, would you believe it? Yes, another ABB style team. ABB style teams, they just work so well in limited metas. This one is Araquanid Double Steel, both Pokemon in the back. Once again, weak to fire, fighting, and ground. So Araquanid as a water bug as an answer to all 3. You could use Golisopod, you could use Mantine, you could use Pelipper in its place. It doesn't matter. Something, or even Jellicent. All of them are kind of pretty similar for what you need them to do in this meta. Berserker is a very flexible safe swap. It has Trailblaze for super effective, double super effective coverage into Gastron if it lures it out. And then you also have Registeel in the back as kind of your closer with that nuke, or both nukes of Zap Cannon plus Focus Blast. So yeah, this team is very, very strong. Berserker can almost always grab shields, and you can always use shields on this Pokemon for this team because Araquanid and Registeel are both extremely bulky. The next team we're going to take a look at is Corviknight, Lantern, and Shadow Whiscash. So this is once again kind of an ABB style team where both Pokemon in the back don't really want to see grass. And the only grass really in this meta are Ferrothorn and Ludicolo. Of course, Ferrothorn is only like a neutral matchup for Whiscash at worst, or I mean at best, because you have Mudshot and Mud Bomb, which are both neutral, and then Lantern has Spark and Thunderbolt, which is neutral into Ludicolo. That said, I could see opting for Blizzard on Whiscash in this meta if you are going to run it, just to give you that additional neutral coverage into both of those Pokemon. I'm not sure you would even make it to a Blizzard against a Ludicolo, to be completely honest, if they're quick enough. So, I mean, that's kind of up to you. But yeah, the thing that this team struggles with is that it doesn't have really a safe swap. So maybe Blizzard Whiscash is the way to go for your safe swap. Lantern in the back is your closer, and Corviknight as your lead to cover that grass weakness by double resisting. The next team we're going to take a look at is also kind of an ABB style team where both Pokemon in the back are weak to ground and fighting. So we have a Razor Leafer on the lead to deal with the grounds and Poliwrath, which is the main fighter. If it is a Lucario, then the 2 matchups in the back are neutral as well, because then you have just Lucario against Lucario and Heatran, which is fine into Lucario as well. This is kind of a RPS pseudo fast move damage team as well, so your wins will definitely be quick, but so will your losses. I will say, if you're worried about switching into your Lucario behind a turn in the lead, if you see a Lucario, the best way to play that out is you throw 1 Razor Leaf and then swap. So that way your Force Palms are synced. That way if they throw a charge move, you can just get the full Force Palm farm down after shielding up. So that's one way to deal with it. And then Heatran, pretty similar stuff. Fire Spin user, kind of one of the only hard answers to Ferrothorn, which is really, really nice. As you can see, the hard red X. But it has a lot of those. It's got that matchup against Scizor and Fortress, which are probably going to be a lot more common this rotation, so something to consider. Taking a look at the next team, and now we're just kind of getting creative. This is one of the only ABC style teams in this list with Shadow Quag on the lead. That Stone Edge coverage is really nice. It's something that Gastrodon lacks, of course, is coverage. And then you have Galleyspot as your safe swap, which is running Shadow Claw in this meta, so it's not as easily walled in the swap. We kind of talked about this earlier. Also could run Aerial Ace, so you're not walled against something like Jellicent. And then Shadow Matang in the back is just kind of your answer to Quagsire weaknesses in grass. The final team that we're going to take a look at is another ABC style team with all three of the starter typings to cover everything in the meta. You are ABA weak to fighting with this team, but if it's Poliwrath, you can actually stay in with Ferrothorn because that's a neutral matchup that you win in the 0 or 1 shield scenario. And if it's a Lucario, then Poliwrath and Magcargo have better matchups in the back. So still ways to work around it. Ferrothorn also struggles against other steals in this meta as a grass. And it can only hit for neutral with Thunder in those matchups. Unless it's Togedemaru, then it's completely walled, which is why I liked using Togedemaru. And so that's why we actually have 2 steel answers in the back with a fighter and an Incinerate user. But yeah, that's 10 top teams for this cup. I will be showcasing some teams on this channel once again, maybe running back some old teams that I tried and had success with to see if they're still working. And maybe we'll try out Aegislash if I can still get a good one. I still haven't got a good one yet, so hesitant to build one yet. But yeah, that's going to be it for me from this video. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.